The May ballot will feature local primaries and money questions, but only one statewide issue. It's issue 2, a renewal of the state capital improvements program, an almost 40-year-old initiative that allows the state to issue bonds to pay for public improvements. This year's renewal includes an increase in borrowing authority, up to $2.5 billion over 10 years. Jeff Stauch is the elected county engineer in Union County. The County Engineers Association of Ohio is among the more than 80 organizations supporting issue 2. Can you explain issue 2 in simple terms, why this is needed? It's been around since 1987, but why is it now in front of voters?
So a little history, as you said, it was first implemented in 1987, so gosh, it's been close to 40 years since it's been in place, and it goes in 10-year cycles, so it allows the state to renew or reauthorize the sale of bonds to fund infrastructure projects in the state of Ohio for local communities and counties. And the issue is for obligation bonds up to $250 million a year. So over that 10-year period, that $250 million goes towards infrastructure projects. Could be bridges, roads certainly, sewer projects, sanitary sewers, water lines, storm sewers. And I think back when it was first formed, the decision was made to allow the voters to take another look at this every 10 years. So we're at that cycle. It's been renewed, I think, 3 other times pretty handily, because people, I think, understand the need for infrastructure. So we are at that stage right now where it's up for renewal.
If local communities want these projects, why can't local communities just pay for them? Why have the entire state of Ohio decide on this kind of money?
So it's a fair question. I've been engineer now for 16 years, and I'm the guy that does the budget. We wear a lot of hats in the county engineer world, but from managing projects to getting them bid to working the budget to trying to put all the pieces together, all this stuff takes money, obviously, and there's just not enough to go over. Never enough money to do everything you want, certainly in the engineering world as well. But this is a great tool to be able to help get some of these other projects across the line. One unique component of this is it requires matching funds to score well, and we can talk about how projects are scored here if we want to get in the weeds a little bit, but the grant usually requires matching funds. So we take some of our money that we get every year through our local revenues, match it with these grant dollars to actually be able to build a project.
Now, the State Capital Improvement Program, which is what issue 2 would fund, was created with the original issue 2 in 1987. That was $1.2 billion. That went up to $1.75 billion in 2005 and $2 billion in 2014. So why has that borrowing authority continued to grow over this almost 40 years?
So I think it's just the natural trend of construction inflation. We all live, especially these last couple of years, the effects of inflation. I tell folks all the time, construction inflation is at a different level, a different steep pace than even normal inflation. What used to cost less than $100,000 a mile to pave a road is now up close to $175,000 for us. That's just the blacktop one mile of road. So I think that's part of it. Ohio's doing pretty well, especially the central part of the state, and the pressures with growth, more traffic, more needs are just a natural thing. So
you talk about the expense of these projects. Why have these projects gotten so expensive? Are the materials just the cost of them increasing so dramatically that these projects have got, or are the projects themselves just getting bigger?
It's probably a little bit of everything, to be honest. The labor rates have obviously grown some, but I think probably the biggest component would be materials, concrete, asphalt, just the materials that it takes to go in to getting these projects built.
Why can't these projects be part of the capital budget or the transportation budget? What makes these projects separate from those other budgets that lawmakers approve in different cycles?
So there's a lot of sources of money that go into, when we step out the door every morning and hop on a local road and work our way to wherever it may be, school or work. You're driving along a number of different jurisdictions. Could be ODOTs, could be a city, could be a county, township even. And some of those, 4-lane highways are funded with federal dollars as well. So I think that's part of it. You just have a number of funding streams for different agencies. What's unique and most helpful about these, they go to local projects. And if I haven't mentioned it, it's counties, it's cities, it's villages, perhaps a utility district, sanitary sewer district. It's reserved for those smaller agencies that, for instance, in Union County, we are one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing county in the state. A lot of development, a lot of growth, but the development doesn't pay for itself. We do, and have for the last 10 or 12 years, really worked with the developers to have them help fund, the project impacts, their traffic impacts, but it's just one piece. It takes some of that, it takes some of our local dollars, occasional federal dollars if we're lucky enough to get a hold of those. But back to your question, it takes all those pieces, and this allows money to be targeted just to the local projects.
When you talk about scoring projects, there are a lot of projects that would potentially be competing for this money. How do you determine what makes the cut?
So, an example in our district, we have, I think there are 19 districts across the state. We being in West Central Ohio, as we call it District 11, there are 8 counties. Each county gets an allocation every year. Ours is somewhere in the neighborhood. It averages about 1 to 1.1 million for Union County each and every year, and has for the last number of years. So the applications come in on an annual basis, and they are scored. And so the best projects, the ones that maybe have the most traffic, for instance, you get more points if you are teaming with other agencies, if you're partnering with a city of Dublin or city of Marysville or a township, that increases your chances. And a lot of it is just to be able to take the best projects and move them forward with the funding. So the score sheets are reviewed. A small committee that's local helps choose the projects. We submit them to the state for approval for the funding. So I think that's a good component because it helps separate the best projects from the ones that won't have quite the same impact. On the other hand, a small village may not compete very well with one of the projects they want to get done. So there's a small government fund as a part of the program. If you're less than a population of 5,000, you can apply to the small government fund to have your smaller project funded and have a better chance.
So there is a pretty strong measure of local control here, even though this is state money and this is a state voter decision. There's a lot of local control here.
It really is, and we obviously from our standpoint, we think that's a great thing. In our world, we often say every trip begins and ends on a local road. So the local projects need some attention too.
I want to ask you about a question that's come up in the last couple of weeks as we've been reporting on the $600 million package of bonds for the Cleveland Browns Stadium in Brook Park that's in the House budget, and whether issue 2 would somehow be tied to that. For instance, if that bond package is removed or vetoed, could issue 2 pay for the Browns Stadium, or could issue 2 pay for another stadium for, say, Cincinnati or somewhere else? Can issue $2 be used in that way?
They cannot. And being honest, as a lifelong diehard Cleveland Browns fan, I've followed that closely, and I have my opinions about whether or not they need a stadium up there. However, the funds here that we're talking about for issue 2 are directed just for local infrastructure, roads, bridges. The bonds are not tied to this proposal for a new stadium or any other stadium for sports teams at all.
Are you concerned that because of all the reporting that's been done and because of the inclusion of this bond package in the budget, that might affect how people view issue 2? I mean, issue 2 has in the past, in its various iterations, it needs to pass by a simple majority.
Sure.
It's passed by larger percentages than that. Are you concerned that people might get confused, concerned about this and vote against issue 2 or not vote at all?
So, I'm sure there's always concern there. I think what helps us though is we have a track record of so many years since '87, and we try to do a good job locally. I know other engineers and city engineers out there try to share, where the funds come from to build a certain project, a roundabout or a bridge. And hopefully people remember that and they do a little bit of research to be able to separate the true from the not true.
And finally, I'm sure you don't want to think about this, but if issue 2 fails, what is the effect on communities that are looking down the road and thinking we need to replace this road, or we need to do this water or sewer project or whatever?
Yeah, it would definitely be impactful for us. I took a look before driving down. Our district, again, the 8 counties, averages between $600,000 and $3 million a year annually for the project. So each of those counties is somewhere in the middle of that range. So if you could just imagine taking away that funding for 1 year, it's likely, 3 miles of paving for a certain county, or maybe a bridge doesn't get built, water line doesn't go in, a treatment plant for sanitary sewer doesn't happen until they figure out another way to fund it. It would be impactful.